been inserted into a few lengthy passages. Finally, readers may wonder why in the chapters that follow, generic physicians are always he and generic patients are always she. This blunt solution to the always vexing pronoun problem recognizes, but isn't meant to endorse, a historical reality. In Freud's early career, nearly all providers of psychotherapy and hypnotism were men, and most of their clients were women. Preface. Among historical figures, Sigmund Freud ranks with Shakespeare and Jesus of Nazareth for the amount of attention bestowed upon him by scholars and commentators. Unlike them, he left behind thousands of documents that show what he was doing and thinking from adolescence until his death at age 83. Although many of those records were placed under lengthy restriction by followers who felt both financial and emotional incentives to idealize him, that blackout has at least partly expired by now. More revelations will emerge, but they are unlikely to alter the outlines of Freud's conduct and beliefs as they appear in the most responsible recent studies. Nor, surely, will much more be learned about Freud's intricate relation to the currents of medical, philosophical, political, and cultural thought that affected him, or about his own effect on later currents. We know that he was the beneficiary of various long-term trends that influenced his own thinking and then accelerated in the 20th century. They include a backlash against scientific positivism, an Ibsenesque discontent with bourgeois hypocrisy, a current of Nietzschean dark romanticism, celebrating the Dionysian element that Christian teaching had equated with sinfulness, the rise of a bohemian avant-garde devoted to anti-establishment feeling and sexual license, increased urbanization and social mobility, accompanied by rejection of patriarchal authority, and a waning of theological belief, allowing psychotherapy to inherit some of religion's traditional role in providing guidance and consolation to the unhappy. The disaster of World War I virtually guaranteed that Freud's pessimistic, instinct-centered philosophy would prevail, at least among intellectuals, over sunnier models of the psyche. If Freud's career and its impact are so well understood, what justification could there be for another lengthy biographical tract? The question appears especially pertinent in view of the fall that Freud's scientific reputation has suffered over the past 45 years. In 1997, for example, the standard academic work on cognition and emotion referenced 1,314 texts, only one of which was by Freud. And in 1999, a comprehensive citation study in the flagship Journal of American Psychology reported that psychoanalytic research has been virtually ignored by mainstream scientific psychology over the past several decades. The situation has not improved in the 21st century. As one otherwise sympathetic observer put it in 2010, the scientific standing of psychoanalysis and of its therapeutic claims has been severely compromised both by a lack of empirical support and by its dependence on an outdated biology. It might be merciful, then, just to turn our backs on an increasingly deserted scene. But Freud, even stripped of his scientific pretensions, is destined to remain among us as the most influential of 20th century sages. Without those pretensions, in fact, his cultural sway becomes a more intriguing phenomenon. Although the peers who knew his writings perceived the flaws in his system, intellectuals in later years were spellbound by his self-portrayal as a lone explorer possessing courageous perseverance, deductive brilliance, tragic insight, and healing power. Much can still be learned from that episode of mass infatuation, in which I myself naively participated 50 years ago. And the serio-comic history of the psychoanalytic movement itself is instructive as a cautionary demonstration of what can happen when a pseudoscience, lacking any objective means of adjudicating internal differences of judgment, becomes a worldwide enterprise whose outposts inevitably loosen their ties with the founding center and generate new vortices of dogma. My main concern here, however, is